Buy land and build off-grid home in California. Is it possible on a budget? Not entirely sure if the reinvesting subforum is the right place for this, as it doesn't pertain to standard commercial law reinvestment. Here's a quick background. Many of my values are centered around my connection with nature. My need to be outside in good year-round climate to enjoy many of my favorite activities is a huge factor in what I pursue next in life. With that premise, I wanted to ask about something I've had in mind for a while: buying a piece of property in a desirable location for nature seekers and not necessarily reinvestors, and building a tiny or shipping container type of lower budget home off-grid for personal use. This is not a question about how you turn this into a business, but really about how you can create your dream nature home on a budget. There is lots of flex in the criteria at the moment, and that's okay, as there are still lots of unknowns to me. Which is why I'm here seeking some advice. I found a plot of land in an area that I find desirable, which would really help me live my dream life in terms of connection with nature. It's in Central California region, meets all of my location criteria, and is currently on sale for $15,000 for 2 acres of land. With that low of a land cost and some behind-the-napkin cost estimates for shipping container home builds, I reckon it is entirely within the realm of possibility to pursue something like this. My question to many of you experienced builders and business people: many thanks for reading. Hope others can comment on this type of build, but also the purpose of this mission: freedom in dream location with budget investment and sweat labor. Unless there has been technological changes, ACs won't work with solar. I grew up in San Diego and never had air conditioning in the 41 years I was there. But the farther you get away from the coast, the hotter it gets. 100K seems light. I have a lot in Utah that I want to develop. For starters, looking at 100K to get driveway, well, electricity and septic. I realize you don't need electricity, but solar definitely has a cost. It'll be tight. Is it possible to up the budget and make a nicer place? BTW. I get what you want to do. Nothing like the ability to get away. In Arizona, I have a house on the side of a mountain. Lots of open space around. In Utah, 18 acres on top of a mountain with 360-degree views. I plan on living in both. Nice, Steve, that sounds awesome. I really want to be in the mountains too. 100K just for that? Shit. Did not think it would cost that much. But I guess it depends on where you can drive power or water from and where the nearest road is, right? The area I'm looking at isn't that remote. It's in the outskirts of a small town. From what I can tell of public maps and records, there seems to be another house still 1 mile down the road from where the road touches the property, indication that electric or water might be accessible. I imagine some kind of solar or diesel hybrid with power banks could work for completely off-grid, but if a power is within reach, that would be infinitely more convenient. The budget can move up if I use loans or earn and save more. With adequately sized land, I wonder if I could subsection and ultimately develop 2 properties. Use one to pay or cost recover the other. If doing tiny home or shipping container design, employer design 1, build 2 for cost synergies. I do think that keeping the cost down makes this a more beneficial exercise. Is it really possible to own a piece of paradise for a bucket of capital that is within tangible reach of many first-world families? In Yuma, I actually bought 52 acres. My house is only going to take up 5 acres. The remainder of the land is in the process of being parceled up and sold. Not including the house itself, I paid about $250K for 50 acres. The parcels should gross me about 1.1 M. Cost to put in a road, pay for engineering, and all the other miscellaneous should cost me about 100K. Don't know how long it will take me to sell all 6 of the parcels. One should be sold this week though. So the idea of splitting lots to make money is a valid idea. Not for the faint of heart though. The reason the cost is so high in Utah is that I want the house well off of the road. It is already at the end of a road but seclusion is desired. The driveway and electricity will be a challenge. The property is almost all giant boulders which will add costs. So, you might be able to get away with less depending on the circumstances. That is part of your due diligence though. Tie the property up with a contract and then determine the costs. You can always let it go at no cost to you as long as you are within the inspection period in the contract. If you want to keep it without powerful solar with generator backup, you can use a swamp cooler. That depends on what you will be comfortable with. I personally feel that less expensive improvements on a lot may diminish your overall return. I do understand your goal here is to live cheap. Running power and water for a mile may be very expensive. How hot does it get in the summer there? You may want to see if you can get a permit for a well. Hey, in my book is Genius BTW. I did a lot of research here in Sedona on this very topic. Still haven't ruled it out. I found that the rules for putting a tiny home or do vary between counties, so talk to them. Sedona has 2 counties. One is an absolute no, the other is very progressive and makes it quite easy to do. My thought was or is to buy 2 and rent one out on Airbnb. This would cover my overhead. There's a manufacturer in TX I visited that builds tiny homes anything under 400 square feet technically. They also build larger homes. $37,500 was my delivered quote for a 400 square feet 2-bedroom with upgrades. Bear in mind, these are not high-end but are exactly what I was looking for. So Stevio is spot on in saying to do your due diligence. I can't stress this enough. Make calls, talk with the counties, property owners, tiny home builders, etc. What will you do for power? VAC definitely required. I talked to my AC guy and a solar company at one point. The answer last year was no. But I am seeing different answers on Google. Let me know if you guys find a different answer. There's a YouTube series of a dude that's building a container home in California. Google it, it's a very good series. It looks like it is costing way more than a regular home. He had to put in sprinklers and all kinds of other code stuff. I agree with Stevio that $100,000 seems light. I'll talk with my tiny home guy tomorrow and ask if he knows about the A or C. I'll let you guys know. Saw someone on YouTube with one of these. They seem to work, but they are very new. We need to talk. Haha. I have been looking at houses in Sedona so I can gauge the market to see if it comes down where I would make an offer. While looking though, the same idea came up about buying some land and building 2 to 5 smaller houses on it. I would turn them into vacation rentals with the ability to make one come available whenever I want to stay there a month. I need to sell my other rental first. Was going to message you next week to check in. I understand what you are going for and you don't need or necessarily want to mess with this as a business. Besides the experience though, I think you have the skills to do this where you can get what you want as well as make a good future investment. You would probably have to use the capital with some lending involved and be patient to find the right deal that works for you. The main issue with the AC is the startup. I am assuming. What about an appropriate sized natural gas generator for the AC size with a decent sized tank that can be run during times of peak heat? Solar and battery bank for the rest of the house. Not the most effective, but could work for 100% off-grid and extra power could be used to charge your batteries along with solar. I just went up to Sedona yesterday to look at 5 properties. One seems promising, the rest were disappointing. I think the market is still too high. I saw one that has potential last week online. It needs to come down some more for my small pockets, so I can fix it up appropriately. Sweet idea, And if you're not worrying about a loan and know the market, you can just wait on it to sell. Nice. I was scoping costs for clearing land from trees and they weren't unreasonable as long as the area were small enough. As cheap as $1,500 or acre up to $7,000 or acre if densely forested. Where you wish to place your home on the land relative to the nearest road will be a big factor in costs. Didn't know anything about swamp coolers. Thanks for the suggestion. With tourism in Sedona I think it would work. This is a sweet idea. I imagine the cost you were quoted doesn't include delivery or install? That seems like a really good price actually. I know most of the materials for a basic shipping container home can be bought for $20,000. That doesn't include any of the labor, roofing, landscaping, site prep, septic, water supply, or electric supply. That's where I was hope, sweat and creativity, maybe sprinkled with some heart and collaboration, can allow for a project like this to be done cheaper than a new build. Good reminder on regulations. I can imagine CA having strict rules. What a great analog, especially it being in California. He's building in Joshua Tree and I'm looking at Northern California. We'll have to dig details but there will be at least statewide similarities. His local building department hit him with a $700 SQFT minimum for building a house. Good example of how regulation can quickly challenge a low budget. Kinda like house hacking with a multifamily but development hacking. Is that a thing? It should be. This type of project could help people own their dream home and create dream homes for a number of other families. Yeah, I was initially just looking at scoping the costs to develop something unique to my needs in a dream location. Good concerns noted so far. Bigger budget would certainly help. Question of funding becomes more important. Now I find myself thinking about strategy. Maybe I be thinking about this more as a business so I can at least recoup some costs or increase my budget if I can deliver value to others. Seth, how were you looking at the Sedona build idea? Getting investors or loans? Can you get traditional mortgages for something like this? That's a nice project. I would just suggest to not go too far from the city. Being far from people brings more problems than it fixes. It's all a matter of accessibility and practicability, being it for your social life or a simple go to the supermarket. I grew up in the suburbs and now I live in the countryside. The nature is great for our well-being as a man, but there is nothing like having civilization near. 1 HR is too far. 10 to 15 minutes is ideal. And you can still find a natural paradise and the joy of permaculture near urban areas. But, if you have resources to invest in a fourplex kind of real estate investment in some urban area, forget your plans, delay them. Live in one division, rent the others. Good luck. Seth, how were you looking at the Sedona build idea? Getting investors or loans? Can you get traditional mortgages for something like this? That is the part I would have to do some research on. If it was just a single unit I would probably get with a contractor and a construction loan that would be converted to conventional for the building process. I am not sure if there are better ways if I am looking at multiple units as I haven't been involved in anything like that. What do you think? My friend and I looked at this home around Austin. This is why I would shy away from building a container home. As a buyer, this home looks awesome. However, they are asking regular home prices for a container home. And quite honestly, I think when people see one, they will assume that it was cheap to build, so it shouldn't sell for retail. So if they had just built a regular home that looked like this one, we may have liked it more. Also, container homes are going to be long and thin and have 8-foot ceilings. So you know the rooms will not be big. After watching the YouTube series of that guy building his home in CA, I've come to the conclusion that it's cheaper and better to build a regular home. A container home does not save much money and there is so much extra work to do on them. And finally, your resale value is just not going to be there. Think about it. Would you buy someone else's container home in Sedona? If so, would you pay the same price as a regular house in $or SF? I'm actually looking to get shipping containers for my business. So a 26 feet container is around $3-5K. When I look at what I get for $3,000, I'm getting a 26 by 8 by 8 shell. I just can't help to think that I could frame that shell for around the same price with regular building materials. So I just don't see how a container would be cheaper. Now, if you started to stack container on top of each other and create overhangs and stuff, I could see how the containers would become way cheaper than regular framing. I get that. You might be able to earn rental income within market rates if the appeal is strong enough. I'm with you though. I personally would undervalue a shipping container home if I were buying one. Exact reasoning you described. I think I can build it cheaper. An eyesore was in populous areas like Toronto. Dude has a restaurant in a densely populated part of town, decides to renovate the top to build a home. Modular off-site built shipping containers used to build up. This is another duo that using shipping containers in Phoenix, Arizona. I can see how stacking in this way can optimize higher rental income per or SQFD of developable land. Do you mean building something like the below? And what makes it way cheaper than regular framing in this instance? I think stacking the containers is what will make them more cost-effective. I don't know if just stacking one container atop another like that would. I don't understand the financial aspects of vacation homes, so can't speak to that. I do understand multifamily though. I would never build. Others may, and that is up to them. I prefer to buy well under replacement cost and sell as values approach replacement cost. Simple model. Those that choose to do vacation rentals, that is a great way to supplement income. Not for me though. I don't want any of that around my residence. Looking at those examples, keep in mind though how they are stacked. The load points for these containers are all on the corners. The middle section is not made to hold a load, so extra support is needed when you start having one overhang in a cantilever style. The picture you posted would be a good example though of increasing square footage by stacking. Remember also that they are not insulated, so you would have to still frame the inside to make room for 1-inch sheet insulation and electrical or plumbing. A co-worker of mine was working on the plans for an empty lake lot he had, and this is some of the stuff we came across. He was going to do all of the interior work himself to save on cost. He had 8 containers too high with cantilevers on the front and back like an H, and that is when we found out he needed additional support. He essentially gained 3 levels of living space if you counted the rooftop. It was a cool design. Industry is slow though, as you know, so I think he put it all on hold and never talked to an engineer about the loads and support to get an official answer. What about a prefabricated house or log cabin? The exterior comes built from the shop, saves on labor. This place rocked in Detroit. Now, probably closed due to C0VLD. My contact person told me AC and heat can be run off-grid using solar. The units are called mini splits. You can buy them at Home Depot. I haven't researched this yet, but I know what they are. In a 399 square feet house there are typically 2 installed. Thanks. I have a mini split in my house that cools the entire lower floor. Works great. I have 1 compressor and 2 blowers. Amazing how efficient they are. Good news that they can be run off of batteries. They had something similar in Belize that I had forgot about until you posted that. In the right spot this could be a great little hub of businesses. Here is an option. Upfront cost might be higher depending on how you want it built, with energy savings on the back end. Needs to be tailored for the area being built. The guy they credit built his first outside of Toes NM. Depends on the AC and size of the house, battery bank, and panel output. My dad built a small cabin running off of 6 panels and can run the AC unit all day with only 2 batteries. Fortunately the hottest days are usually the sunniest too. He also has a 220 gallons water tank with a 12V pump for water pressure. Runs off of its own deep cycle battery and panel. Fills the tank up once a week. I own 11 elevated acres in Sedona in an unincorporated low touristy area with no hoe. It is wide open space and mostly farms. The land I own would be perfect for your vacation idea. Concept 1 issue: if you attempted to do this there, and the county would prevent it. In fact, we already had one developer attempt to put up a glamping operation. Myself and the neighbors fought the development for nearly a year, scaring the developer away. Any type of vacation operation here in Sedona, either from an individual or a corporation, will not be easy to deploy in the wide open spaces. That is better suited for a condo or a house in a neighborhood, provided the CC&Rs allow it. If so, prepared for a fight from all types of entities, neighbors, county zoning, hoe rigs, etc. My intent with this land is not a tent or a small house, it is a log cabin that will probably cost upward of $2 million. So it is in my interest, as well as other homeowners, not to have tourists coming and going in tents, shipping containers, or homes on trailers. I know, sounds a bit snooty, but there's a reason why people live out here in the sticks, miles away from the main road. Any area not already infected by tourists is a place that would be defended. Went off on an Earthship binge on YouTube. I absolutely love the concept. I doubt California would approve permits for a build like this. Such a shame, as it seems regulatory is what's holding back this idea from growing bigger. But elsewhere, seems like people are building really unique structures in all kinds of climates. Thanks for sharing, man. I like this consp infinitely more than container home designs. What part of Utah? A lot of it depends on what you want. This dude built his for $30K. Earthbound keeps AC need low. There is nothing scenic or luxurious about it. It's 2 containers buried in the dirt. Late in the video the interviewer asks him about code, and his response is along the lines of the code inspector came and said we don't really have codes for this, so they just left us alone. Basically, if you live in a rural area you might win the code inspector lottery like this guy, but I wouldn't plan around it. Owns part of a company that does some non-traditional construction, and might be able to add. If this is where I think it is, I've eyed this area for a while. Too far out for tourists or business. Nice and private, and the prices are decent for the area. Bordering the national forest is a bonus if you can. Land in Williams, as Coconino County is really cheap. Of course, you have to have water delivered or collect and store it yourself. Not for me, but you could probably put a tiny home or container, etc. there. I wonder how common that is? I mean, they really might not have any codes for a buried shipping container. What do they even do in this type of situation? It's probably relatively common in rural areas. Don't ask, don't tell sort of thing. But it's a big risk if you get the wrong guy, or catch an inspector when he's having a bad day. We've had that experience a lot with fire marshals and city commercial code inspectors. There's a lot of variances between different counties and municipalities, and even between the inspectors themselves. I've heard everything from you really can't have a bunch of pallets in the parking lot. Maybe we say I didn't actually come by here till next Tuesday morning, and maybe I don't see the pallets then, and I only drive this neighborhood about once a month to I'm coming back this afternoon, and if that stuff isn't out, I'm fining you and I have the authority to blah 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 blah. Perhaps instead of lottery I should have said Russian roulette. Mob. It is the best place that I have seen and fits my lifestyle. This guy built an off-the-grid solar cabin for $2,000. It only costs $200 or in propane. He has a PDF on his site and so yes, I'd certainly say it's possible to do for $100K. His website even has. I'm guessing you want something bigger than that, but I'm sure there's tons of valuable information there. If you are looking at Northern Cal, maybe just find some land right across state lines and still close to everything you want. That would be perfect. Thanks for offering to sell an acre. Tim looked at some land listed and nothing catching my eye except the ones way outside of my price range. Looks like I'll be going the single-family house route at least in that area if prices come down. Trying to watch a couple different areas that I'm interested in and haven't narrowed it down yet. Looks awesome. I'm getting the 5 acres next to you to put up my container home, right on the property line. Great idea. I'll get the 5 on the other side of to put my box on. Sorry, I border the national forest, you are out of luck. Totally possible, check out near Fortuna, for example. But, socially, Northern California is a very different kettle of fish. If you're used to city life, the culture shock is a really big deal. I moved from Boston to rural Oregon. Also, many places where land is cheap are places where resources like food and gas are expensive, because you're miles from anywhere. Done correctly, it would be possible to pay for this with a YouTube channel. There are a lot of channels out there, and if done well, some have pretty high view counts. Same for van life type channels. There's a lot of grabby headlines like couple quit job to live off grid, that is a combination of genuine DIY interest and escapism. Not sure what the formula for a successful channel is. Having an attractive wife or GF that will work a chainsaw in a tube top, and using the still for the video tile, seems to drive views. Ask me how I know. You might be able to build yourself something really cheap, like this guy did. 50 years off-grid, architect make a paradise amid NorCal redwoods. Also you might want to reconsider the container direction after watching this one, 7 reasons why shipping container homes are a scam. Still looking into this. In my vacation rental research I came across Quonset house plans. Some rental equipment and a few guys and you can DIY. I also had looked into prefab A-frames that ship from both US and Northern EU and come with full furnishings for a decent price depending on size. Great thread. I know a guy who designs shipping container houses. Does tons of drawings. He told me you can stack 6 containers. The $2,000 cabin seriously gave me hope for decent housing if all goes to hell. This guy though, wow. Not gonna lie, didn't read all the replies. But it'd be dope if you could. I know I have a similar goal someday, but probably either here in the Midwest, Kentucky, or the Plains.